In this lesson, we'll discuss baselines. Let's start off by loading a base reflectivity product on the state scale. So let's make sure we're on the state scale, and then go to the KCRI menu, then go down to KCRI Z, then over and up to 0.5Z best res, and let's go ahead and load that one in. If you haven't done so already, let's change our magnification from 1 to 1.5 to make things easier to read once we load up our baselines. So go up to Mag and select 1.5, or you can select 2 if you want that to be even bigger, but I'll use 1.5. Next, let's load up our baselines. So to do that, we're going to go to the Tools menu, and the second one down is baselines. So let's go ahead and load those in. Now, alternatively, we could have loaded our baselines using this lines icon underneath KTLX. In a similar way we could have done with points. So what we've done is load 10 baselines labeled A to A prime all the way through J to J prime. And these lines can be used to construct cross sections from model or radar data from within the volume browser. These lines are editable by default and can be moved anywhere in the main display, and they can be adjusted to just about any length. So let's try to work with some of these lines. Let's try to work with the line I. So go ahead and try to find line I on your display. It will probably be in a different place than mine. So once you have found it, let's go ahead and try to edit it. So hover over the beginning of it, labeled I, and then left click and hold and drag it to make it smaller. We can drag it back to make it larger. We can drag it up or down to change the orientation. And we can even middle click somewhere along this line and create an additional vertex. And then drag this vertex down or up to create some complex shapes. Next, let's try to use one of these baselines to create our cross section. So I will use line F. So go ahead and try to find line F on your display. I'll give you a few seconds. Once you have found line F, let's drag it to central Oklahoma, and let's put it in a west to east orientation just south of that big supercell. So why did we do that? Well, we have a cold front on this day surging from the northwest, and it's intersecting a dry line approaching from the west. So we're going to try to sample the dry line, and then in a later forecast hour we're going to try to get a frontal passage. So now that your line is oriented in a similar way mine is, let's go ahead and try to load up a model cross section. So to do that, go under the volume menu and then go to browser. Give me a few seconds to drag the volume browser to your display so you can follow along. Now that we've done that, let's make sure we have cross section selected and that we are in log 1050 to 150. Next, under sources, let's go to volume, and let's go down and use RAP 13 as our model. Under fields, let's go to basic and down to temperature. Next, let's go to basic again. We're going to load 2 more products. So go to basic and go down to relative humidity. Next, let's go to basic one more time and go down to wind and select that. Now that you've done that, let's go under planes and try to find our line F that we use. So click on specified and select line F. You should now see 3 products pop up in the product selection list, and once you see all 3 products, go ahead and click load at the bottom. So the cross section may take a few moments to load, so let's wait. Okay, all 3 products have been loaded. Let's go ahead and make one of these an image to make the display less cluttered. Let's make relative humidity an image. So hover over relative humidity in the product legend, right click and hold, and select load as image. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and click off the contours of the relative humidity to make the display less cluttered. So left click on relative humidity. I'll give you a few seconds to get caught up. Let's go ahead and press enter on the numeric side of your keyboard to get rid of all these products so you can see our axes. So our cross section goes from Pampa, Texas all the way to Van Buren, Arkansas. And let's actually click enter back on the numeric side of your keyboard to see what our times are. So right now we're looking at an 11-hour forecast. We want to go back to initialized. So let's use our arrows to go to the 0 hour so we're using the 23Z run, and let's try to look for the dry line. So right there, right about there is the dry line west of Oklahoma City, and we know that's a dry line because we have dry air on the left, and then we have high relative humidities, which is moist air, on the right. We also see that we have backed winds at the surface in advance of the dry line, and then we have this high momentum air aloft in the form of westerlies, so we know there's a trough overhead. Let's try to step forward through time and try to get a frontal passage. So we're going to want to pay attention to our winds around Oklahoma City, and so far they are southerly, still southerly. At 2Z we start to get a northeasterly component, so we know we got our frontal passage, and they get more northerly as we go. So you got to practice how to load baselines, how to adjust your baselines, and how to use one of your baselines to load up a model cross section.